growing up, you realize your differences, and that causes you to either be isolated or you've got to assimilate into other groups by force with your confidence and with who you are. And I struggled with that.
Tope Chiedozie is the founder and host of the Sit Down UK, a platform where inspiring individuals come and talk about what it's like behind the money, the fame, the camera, and the lights. He's had notable guests over the years, including BAFTA winner Mo Gilligan, award-winning designer Bianca Saunders, and R&B icon Charlotte Amar. He's also a trainer facilitator specializing in event management, learning design, and facilitating experiences and impactful programs.
I was a quiet child. I grew up mainly with my biological father, and so he's Nigerian. It was very strict, very African home. So I didn't really grow up with a voice, which is funny because I use my voice now a lot. So therefore, I was very quiet, very to myself. Nothing came. When I say nothing came, almost like a writer's block. Couldn't write anything. But this new thing, sit down, for some reason, all the creative energy was going into that. And so after a while, I was like, you know what? I'll do this sit down thing. Let's see how far this goes. And I'd literally pivot. All the creative energy from music, I pivoted and I poured it into the sit down.
How do you create a balance between not getting your head in the clouds, but also not staying too grounded that you forget who you are? How do you balance both?
I think it takes...
Welcome to Everyday Leadership, the platform where I get the pleasure of delving into the amazing backstories of amazing leaders. Like my guest today, Tope Chiedozie.
Chiedozie, yeah.
Chiedozie.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was trying to say, can I link to my email? But why you might let me down?
Because I'm Igbo and Yoruba, innit? So
you got the mix.
I got the mix.
And I have the pleasure of just spending the next hour or so just learning a lot more about you. How are you doing, Tope?
I'm good, man. Thank you for that intro. You know what? Like you said, because I interview people, I rarely hear an intro, like someone do that for me. So, no, I appreciate it, man.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you. In fact, I'm not sure you actually remember the first time we met, but it was at one of Translate Culture's events about 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, okay. The one in was it the one in Waterloo?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Just had a very, very brief conversation. You were telling me about the sit down. But also you were talking a bit about your past as well. And from that day, I was like, I'm gonna get this guy on my podcast. So it's like 3-4 years in the making for me just to jump it up and have this conversation.
That's crazy.
But for I guess a lot of people who don't know you and don't know your story, if I'm gonna go way back.
Wow.
To younger you, 8-year-old you. What were you like? I'm curious.
8-year-old. I was very quiet, man. I was a quiet child. I grew up mainly with my father and my biological father, and so it was he's Nigerian. It was very strict, very African home. So I didn't really grow up with a voice, which is funny because I use my voice now a lot. So therefore, I was very quiet, very to myself. I was at the time an only child, so I lived with my father on my own, South London, Camberwell. So I made a lot of excitement or any interest or anything with myself in my room. Books, drawing, poetry. Those were the ways I kind of entertained myself. My mind, it was my creative mind that I kind of used to entertain myself. But as an 8-year-old, I was just very quiet, very, very insular. Yeah, very.
When did that begin to shift and change?
Around, I'd say year 6, I moved to live with my mum in West London. And with my mum, it was my mum, my stepdad, and my brothers and sisters. So now I'm moving from a kind of like an isolated, kind of sheltered existence to now with them where, you know, I'm exposed to different friendship groups, different interests. That's when music became something. I always loved music, Michael Jackson, obviously. But when I moved over there, that's when I started to come alive a bit. I started to realize, okay, these are the things that I like. I love literature. I love music. And anything to do with creativity that I can kind of get my hands on.
When you talk about your love for for music, and obviously that spark being there. Obviously, you went on to go and have the commission
Yes.
with your brother, which was
Yeah.
down the line. But I'm curious, even in that transition period of you moving across and then starting to find your voice, starting to hone your creativity, were there things around you that helped you to be able to be like, I can feed that curiosity and try all these different elements out, or was it just that change in environment that just completely gave you that 360 view?
I would definitely say it was church. Church. I went to a church
Mm.
it's still there now, Jesus House. Um, it is headed up now by Pastor Agu Iruku. And so they had quite a thriving youth section. And big up Pastor Badger at Kisoya. He was so instrumental in fostering that understanding that, boy, I have a voice, I have a purpose, and I can do something with it. And so that transition period, in the middle of that transition period, I started to attend this church, started to come under the teachers of Pastor Badger. And one of the things that the church really pushed was, purpose, 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 purpose,
Oh.
that you have talents, you have giftings, and you have abilities. And there's a reason you have them. There's a purpose. So work on those talents and your giftings and your abilities, and at the same time find what the purpose of those are. And I think that's what fused it together. That was even that bridging gap to commission, because in that period of time, me, my brother, a few others, we're realizing, okay, we've got a gift in music. What can we use it for? What is the purpose of it? And I think that's something that has always followed me in terms of the things that I do. Okay, but has it got a purpose to it? If it doesn't, it's very hard to hold my attention or for me to kind of pursue it.
Purpose is always a topic that I think a lot of people struggle with. And I think we live in a world where so many people are searching for their purposes. They're searching for meaning.
Yeah.
And they find it in so many different ways, but never in the true key purpose of what they are meant to do.
Mm.
And I'm curious, how did you actually learn what your purpose was?
Yeah, I love that question. It was such a hard journey. Oh my gosh. For those that grow up in that church environment, you're bombarded with that ideology that you have purpose, you have identity, you're here for a reason. But what reason? What's the reason? And how do I find what this reason is? And so there becomes this actual frustration that everyone is telling you that your life means something, but you don't even know what the meaning is. And you don't even truly know how to find that meaning. And that was my struggle. So I would go to services, I would be pulled aside and be spoken to once people see certain things that I'm really good at and be like, oh, you have a gift there, use it. I'm like, for what? And so I had to get to a place where it was a lot of soul searching. And one of the practical things I did was write down what are all the things that I'm good at. What are the things that I do well? And this is what Pastor Padgett taught us. He was like, what is one thing that you can do 3 a.m. in the morning if somebody wakes you up and says, get up, do this thing. What is it that you can do? And I thought, okay, well, at the time I had a transition of doing poetry and then moving poetry into music. And music was something that I could just do. You told me 3 a.m. to write a lyric about this, I can do it. And so from there, I started to think, okay, well, what is it I want to do with this music? Well, I really want people to have music that they can connect with, that they can relate to. It may not hit the charts, but it might hit their heart. That's the kind of music I was going to make. So I thought, okay, cool. I've got the skill, I've got the gifting, I've got the talent, and I think I've found a purpose to it. I'm matching them together. And so now that's the kind of model that I use in trying to find purpose. What is it again that I'm good at? And what is it that I want to do with it? What can I use to help someone with? That becomes my purpose. And so I've learned that it shifts and it changes. There's such an agility that you have to kind of approach it with instead of this static motion. Okay, it's this and it's this forever. It may not be that forever. You might have a child and that whole thing changes, which happened to me. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think the pursuit of purpose has to be one that is taken with a pinch of salt, and you take markers every so often, every 2 or 3 years. Is this the same thing I want to be doing? Maybe I want to switch it up. What are the things that I'm good at? and then what is the purpose that I can attach that to? What's my intention? Yeah.
I love that. And I think it speaks also to who we are as human beings because we're ever evolving.
Ever.
So the more and more we grow, the more and more experiences that we have, the more and more things that we're exposed to. So naturally speaking, our purpose will never just stay as one thing. It should. I say it should evolve. But it's interesting when you talk about the core fundamental, because when I look at, I guess, even your journey from doing the music to even the work you do from facilitating and training, or the work you do with the sit down, or just journaling who you are as a person, it seems like there is that common thread for you of is either you are pulling the purpose out of people through their stories to teach other people, or you're doing it directly as a facilitator. But regardless, for you, it's around storytelling, whether through lyrics or other ways, but there's something around stories and words that I think are very powerful for you.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think that comes from, I've got a scar on my head here. And so that came from, I was prematurely born for about 5 or 6 months. I was prematurely born by that amount of time. So when I came out of my mother's womb, she was struggling with high blood pressure. She almost died. I had to get put into an incubator and I had all these different operations, etc., that was done on me. And then there was an operation done on my head and it left a scar. Just as a natural scar, it would leave on anybody's body. But because I'm so small and it's my skull, it means then as my head expands, as I grow, the scar expands. And so no hair can grow in it, etc. And so growing up, you realize your differences in relation to other people. You get into friendship groups, schools, etc., and you realize, oh, I'm so different, and that causes you to either be isolated or you've got to assimilate into other groups by force with your confidence and with who you are. And I struggled with that. And what I struggled with was people understanding me and me being able to understand who I was, because I was thinking, okay, do I need to be this set of people? Do I need to be like this set of people so that I don't stand out? Or maybe, no, maybe I need to be like this set of people so I don't stand out. And so there was this common misunderstanding within me, misunderstanding when I went to the barbers, and the barbers are saying, you know what, somebody chop your head? No, nobody chopped my head, sir. I just want to get a haircut, please.
I love our people.
I just want to get a haircut. And so this storytelling element, it comes from a desire to be understood. If you can tell somebody's story, oh my gosh, you'll understand the power that is within stories, because the person listening is able to find themselves somewhere in that story and you connect. That's when you connect, because you realize that, oh my gosh, my story was not isolated on my individual journey, but somebody who I've never met in my life walked the same path that I walked. Let's chat. Let's talk a bit. And so stories for me really connect us. My story, being able to tell it through the music, reaches out to somebody listening to Spotify across the world that can connect with that story. Doing the sit down, it's platforming these stories so that the audience can hear, listen to Mo Gilligan and be like, I see Mo so up here, but his story brings us so down here together and we can connect. So I think that's what's been this line that has just been all the way, this red thread that's gone all the way through, of wanting to tell people stories, wanting to tell my story so that we can just, connect as human beings and just understand that we are at different points, in the same place.
Right. So resonate with that. And I always say that the ultimate storyteller was Jesus. There's a reason why he told so many parables, because stories connect. Stories elicit that emotion inside of us. And I love that phrase where you said that allows you to see yourself in other people's journeys. That sometimes you can't see the money, you can't see the fame, you can't see all of that, but you can still connect with certain elements of that. And that's what really brings us together. And that's what helps us to form great communities. So I kind of love when you said that. And I guess with you then utilizing the pen, and then obviously creating the commission, that you and your brother were out there. You were starting to do it. You were touring. You had the EP out. Like, what was that like? What was that period of your life like for you?
Yeah, it was a beautiful time. As you know, I saw some video clips on Instagram just the other day of past events and past radio sets that we did, and it was such you know, when I interview people, like when I interview Shola Amma, when I interview like Mo Gilligan, you know, I ask these people about the moments that we know them for, and I ask, you know, did you recognize how impactful that time was? And every single person has said, no, you just in the moment do not, because you're in that moment. You're galvanized as everybody else is galvanized. You don't know the impact that it might be having until way down the line. But those times were just so beautiful. It was like if you were not a Christian as a young person in that time, it was like what were you doing? Like what what else could you be on? It was like every week there was a youth event that we would go to and we'll perform, and just seeing the way that people would interact with the music, it's just powerful. And so at the same time you understood the power that you wielded with the music and the things that we said. And so we had Faith Child's mother, Pastor Mary McCauley, big up to her. She was such a guiding force in that when we would do events and like, sometimes even big events, she would always ensure that, look, don't get gas, don't get carried away, don't even try it. Remember, what is the purpose of this? What is the reason for this? So it would always pull us down to ground and be like, okay, yeah, what is it why are we doing this again? And even though we would be here, there, and everywhere, we were out there, but we always had to rein it in and be like, yeah, but why are we always out here? What is it that we're trying to do? And I think that's what enabled us just to go through it and go through the highs of it and the lows of it sometimes, but still try and keep that purpose resonant in our hearts. So I love that period, man. I've got memorabilia upstairs. I got, you know, flyers, and I'm thankful that I look on it fondly.
Going through that, sounds like you went through that very grounded as well, which is really interesting to hear you say, especially as still young kids. Like when you're young kids, naturally speaking, I was like, I want to get out there and do something. When you get out there, you're actually doing something. You're getting famous. You were touring with The Truth and doing a whole national tour.
Yeah.
Like the video, like all that kind of stuff. People know you.
Yeah.
And then to then be able to be like, you got people around you where it's like, no, remember who you are, stay grounded, stay connected to why you're doing it to help you level off. It's a very mature approach to being, I'm going to call it the music game at a very young soul. Was there any of that intentional at all? Or was it just you were blessed to have fortunate people around you who were able to kind of just speak into you and give you that surrounding and that mature way of looking at things?
Yeah, I think we were just blessed to have it, and it just meant that when it was just us two in the beginning, everybody that joined and rallied around us almost had to fall in line with that ideology and that thinking. So when we're getting band members who's, you know, people that are playing drums, people that are playing guitar, people, you know, our backing singers, we would have night vigils like before we were going to do shows and or even if we weren't doing a show, we'd have night vigils where we'd come, we'll pray, and then we'd do rehearsal and practice, and then the next morning, let's say we've got a show next week, and we'd go to that. So we had these people around us that were speaking into our lives and reminding us understand what this really is, fam. And it meant that anybody that came into it, we had to be hip and wise to that. Yes, I know you're coming into this, but please understand what this is. It's really not about us. Yes, we are the vessels that carry the message, cool, but all the hoopla and all the hype, that's great, but it's not the essence of why we are doing it. Otherwise, we'll stop a long time ago. We are trying to make music that connects with people in a way that relates to them and can possibly show them God in a different light, present faith in a different type of way, through this type of music. That's what we are here to do. Anything that comes after that, amen, great, we acknowledge it. But this is the core. So we had the people speaking into us, but we also had to make sure that, cool, the grouping. And now we see a lot of people from that group. They're doing amazing things. We had, our drummer was Emmanuel, MD, who's the MD and plays drums for Burna Boy. The keyboardist is Michael Massaday. He was our keyboardist. He plays now for Burna Boy. So these are people that now would love to see them just go off and just do amazing things, but they are still the same people, grounded individuals that know my talent, everything that I'm doing. It's just not me. It's God that is working through me to do the amazing things that I'm doing.
Yeah, that's impactful, man. That interesting. When I listen to you talk, it sounds very much like how when a founder has a company and they're bringing new people into that, it's like you're coming in, but you need to understand our DNA, you need to understand our culture, and
true.
you need to tap into that. If that is not you, great, this is not space for you, but this is what you're coming to. It's not just about the money or just coming in, like you are helping to shape the lifestyles and the perceptions and mindset mentalities of the people that are coming into your space. And that intentionality, like you said, has left a legacy in so many different spaces. So that's I never actually thought about utilizing music like that, but hearing you talk about it, that's kind of what comes to mind for me.
Thank you.
And when did you know it was time to hang up and to walk away and step into a whole different world?
That's so interesting. When was it? I think around 2015. I think around 2015, 16, things were slowing down with commission, and I think we got to a point where we started off with grime, and the sound was changing to more dance, more Tiny Temper, Star in the Hood, and it was getting more dancey, and we were making more dancey songs. And then we're just thinking, okay, but is this us? Like, because now we're swaying with the sounds and swaying with the genres, because the grime was phasing out. So it was like, okay, so where does that place us? And so I think me and my brother had a conversation, and we were like, I think that's it. And it was a conversation of not of I wasn't sad or anything, but it was more of what we were called to do, what we were put in place to do in that unique time, in that unique period. I said, I think we've done it. I think that's what we were to do. Now, I think I still had a push and a burden to do music, but other music like rap. But we would remember we'd always been doing grime, and so we said, okay, let's put this down. If we feel the need, and if we feel God is leading us to pick it up again, cool, let's pick it up again. And so I asked him, I said, you know what, I do think I want to explore rap, and I always had that musical itch. And I said, you know what, is it okay if I have your blessing? And he was like, yeah, sure, like anything, come on, like anything you want to do, I'll be there to support it. So we put it down. And so from 2016, I believe it's 2016, my mind's, I can't remember. Or was it 2012? I think it was 2012. Anyway, I did my first mixtape, my first solo mixtape. I put that out. That went very well. And then 2018, I did my album. And that is when I was like, oh my gosh, this chasing and this pursuit of purpose, I think I actually am receiving and acknowledging that, music is my thing. And it was called a moment of clarity. It was a moment of clarity because for years I had doubted myself, and for years I had we had done things, but I had such low self-esteem towards it. I didn't, people would be like, oh, you're amazing, you did well, that song, your lyrics, but I was just like, yeah, that's cool, we thank God, and then you move on. And I always say to people that sometimes you have to be careful of what humility is, because there is this consistent thing where you might receive praise, you give it to God.
Mm.
And in that, there's a danger in that, because it can build silent, low self-esteem, because you don't receive anything.
Yeah.
You don't even know what you do well, because you never actually sit and understand it. You refuse to even accept that you did it. So if you consistently do that, you're left with almost nothing. You don't even know if you're good at anything, because obviously you give praise to God, and obviously that's what you're supposed to do. But I believe God gives us wisdom to be able to be in a space where you can be like, this is what I do well, and I know who empowers me to do it. But this is what I do
You
well.
own it.
Okay. And so moment of clarity was a moment of owning it. Like, oh my God, my eyes I can see now, yes, this is what I've been gifted to do well, and I do it well. However, the following year, I had my daughter, and I didn't want to be a daddy rapper. I wanted to be a dad, and maybe do rap later. But it was this idea that, oh my gosh, I've had a daughter now. So, oh my gosh, the next album is going to be mad. It's good. Why? Because I've got this new lease of inspiration and creativity? No. She was born April the 13th, 2019. And we all know by the next year what had happened. Lockdown. We were out of here. No, nothing's happening. And so I just thought, okay, well, we're locked down. That's even better. Look at the lyrics that I'm about. Oh my days. Look at the lyrics I'm about to. Nothing came. Nothing. When I say nothing came, almost like a writer's block. I couldn't write anything. Nothing came. I fought it. I downloaded instrumentals upon instrumentals. I listened to my favorite artists. I was like, yeah, let me get some inspiration. Nothing. But this new thing that I had started previously in 2017, the sit down, for some reason, all the creative energy was going into that.
Yeah.
Creating the logo, creating the flyers, finding the artists, the guests, finding the venues. There was this new vigor, there was this new excitement that, oh my gosh, like, I'm just going to have this dope conversation with this person. I can't wait to hear this. But I need to make an album.
Oh.
And so after a while, I was like, you know what? Let me put that down. I'll do this sit down thing. And let's see how far this goes. If that creative tap is turned, we'll go with it. But all I felt was, I remember there was I don't know if it was from God, I don't know where it came from, but it was like pivot. And I'd literally pivot. So all the creative energy from music, I pivoted and I poured it into the sit down. And since then, I haven't released any music.
Wow. That's well, at least one you listened. Because there are way too many people out here who should be listening to someone telling them that, my friend, you need to let that go. But they're still holding on, to that dream. But I'm curious to hear from an emotional perspective, how was that for you, not being able to have a writer's block for that period of time? That must have felt scary. It might have even felt like, what's going on with me? Am I not good enough? All that confidence wrapped up in there. I'm curious, what was that for you actually going through that?
That's a good question. Because of the pivot, it's so weird, but I not hate, but I began to dislike the music. So it wasn't too much of an internal death, because I was like, the thought of doing a video shoot, just ugh. I was just like, the thought of having to do a photo shoot and like, I love performing, but the thought of having to now go to the studio, for some reason, it became this rigmarole. Oh my gosh, I don't even want to do that. So now when I see artists having to do so much for the art, I keep looking at it, and I'm shocked at myself. But I always look at it, and I'm like, thank God I don't have to do that. Goodness me, I can't imagine doing that right now. No way. And so literally, I really feel that all that creative energy just was pivoted, and it wasn't a mourning. It was just a closing of that door. The door can be opened at any time, and I get to choose that. And this is the thing that we spoke about a couple of minutes earlier about purpose and that journey, and how you have to remain so agile to it. Because had I, like you said, remained so rigid in, no, I've got to do music, music is my life, someone else would be doing the sit down right now. Someone else will be doing the sit down right now. And I'll be looking at it and be like, oh, that's a good idea. But I've got to do this album. And so I had to listen to where was my heart kind of leaning at that time. And it wasn't in that. And like I said, in the beginning, if my heart is not fully in it, man, you'll only get 40%. Not even, you'll get 25% of me. But if you've got my heart, you'd have to ask for anything more. So I had to kind of just lean to it. Thankfully, it wasn't a mourning. It was more of it literally was a transition.
That's when you know that it is done, at least for now. And that season, like I said, it's a season for everything. And for you to be in that position, was like, oh, the thought of videos and all that kind of stuff, that ain't me anymore. And then thinking about, like, when I said right at the start, like you crafting the sit down to have conversations. You have this slogan where creativity meets purpose. And I love those two words actually coming together and creating an environment where artists come and share and do what they do. How did you actually come up with that concept? I know you had it since 2017. And what is it that made you think, you know what, I could even get some of these big names to come and share in a very different way that they would normally do?
Yeah. So what happened was I spoke to one of my friends who does music. I never say the name, but people, if I say the name, people know the name. And so I was on his Instagram and I said, oh, let me message him because things look like they were popping. Tours, headline shows. And so I messaged him. I said, well done, bro. Great to see what's going on. Like, keep going. And he was like, bro, don't even pay attention to all that. I was like, why? Because that's just the highlights. Like, that's behind the scenes. The label are trying to do me over. My management is trying to do me over. There's no money. I'm doing these shows, but I'm not seeing anything back. By the time we recoup, I just want to get out of it. I was like, what? I was like, but your Instagram, like, he goes, don't even, he said, don't pay attention to that, man. I said, you know what you should do, though? I said, because it was at the time that people were doing blogs and artists were really taking you behind the scenes. I said, you know what you should do? Do a video, yeah? Just go on YouTube, do a video, and just say to people that, look, to your fans and supporters, like, this is how it really is. Thank you for rocking with me, but I'm struggling with this. It's not what you think. Like, lay it out for them because they'll connect with it. Why? Because I'm about storytelling. If you be honest with your story, they'll connect with it. And he was like, no, I can't do that. I said, why? Because I'll break the illusion. I was like, wow, you'll break the illusion. And that's when it hit me because I was like, oh my gosh, then for him, he has to keep the illusion going. But I said, well, what if there's a place where he didn't have to do that? What if there was there's a place where he could just be open with his people? You know what I'm saying? The people who already support him. I said, you know what, let me do that because I was an independent artist. So I already know, I've gone through the trenches of doing your own events. So I know how to do events. I've just never in my life hosted or been an interviewer. I've never done that. But as a person, I'm inquisitive. Again, we go back to it. What are the things that you do well? What are the skills? What are the things that you actually do well? I'm naturally a good, I'm inquisitive. I'm a person who can ask questions because I genuinely want to know why, so I can understand. So I said, all right, cool. April 2017. So the March before that, April, I was thinking, you know what? I think I'm going to do it. But I was hesitant. I was like, but I've never done this before. Like, I'm an artist. I make music. That's just, why am I trying to jump into this new thing? Spoke to my friend. She said, no, that's a good idea. You should do it. Spoke to my wife. No, that's a good idea. You should do it. I was like, man, what am I even going to call it? The sit down. Let's just call it the sit down. I was like, okay, I need to get a logo. Went on to big up Canva, still use Canva to today. Mocked up a logo. I said, all right, let's call it that. And I said, but who's going to be my first guest? So I spoke to one of my friends who is a grime artist, but also suffered from sickle cell, so A-star. And I said, bro, I'm going to do this new thing. Would you come and be a guest? He said, yeah, man, yeah. Came on, shared his whole story of dealing with sickle cell, what it's like, how it's not necessarily made aware as much in the black community, even as now, as it is more now. He was going to get married, so he had to explain the dynamics of that and how choosing a partner, having to share with his partner that, look, this is what I deal with on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. And so he really got into the honesty of it and the vulnerability. By the time we did that event, people really connected with it. And they said it was a great event. And I was like, all right, cool, done. Let me go back to making music. That's it. That was good. That was a good event, man. That was a good event. People were like, no, you need to do another one. And I always say big up to A-Star, because A-Star is the sole reason the sit down is not a chat show is because of his boldness to be as vulnerable as he was at that event. Because it meant that any other guest that comes after him, they had to meet that. That was the new parameter that was set. That was the new standard that was initiated through him. And so I just started to, how did I get these guests? I just started to pull on my left and my right. On my left was Breenie Lee, the influencer. She, at that time, was going for a redefinition of who she is in terms of beauty and what beauty standards meant. And so I said, you know what? I was going to the same church as her. I said, you know what? Would you come? Bear in mind, I've only done this once. But I was like, would you come? She came. Next person I pulled, Mercedes Benson. And that was in 2018. I used to be her youth pastor. So it was easier for me to reach and say, but Mercedes, yo, come and do this. Governor B, unfortunately at that time, he just lost his father. And so I wanted there to be a space where he could almost grieve in a safe way, because obviously he's a public figure. So you got people asking him, oh, what happened? And he was so open in that period. And it was just a case of, I didn't have a black book. I just had a phone book. And it was like, Jake Isaac, would you come and talk about like your music and where that come? Pulling. And then my wife and I grew up with JME's family. And so I said, okay, would JME do it? Like, would he do it? And we were at his house one day, his sister's house, and I said, bro, would you? And he said, so a lot of the times, all these guests that I'm getting, again, Mo Gilligan, at the time I met my wife and we were just friends, we would go to the Sunday show where he was the host. And he was just so good of a host. We didn't want to go if Mo wasn't there. And we just, every single time he came off the stage and we finished, but that Mo, big up to you, man, you're doing a good job. And we became regulars going. So he would see us and be like, thanks for coming, guys. And then he would shoot up. He went viral. And so we were just so happy to see his growth that he just got to a stage where I was like, bro, would you? And so all these people, some of them are cold calls, some of them are cold emails, but a lot of them have been of some relation. I've got something. And the more you're building that back catalogue, I can go to Shola Amma and say, well, we've done Mo Gilligan. Would you do? And she's like, yeah. We got to Shola Amma. She was like, she was a great guest. Like, in terms of that, how that happened. I knew her manager in a WhatsApp group. He connected us, and she was just easy, easy. She was boom, 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 easy. So that's how it started, and all these guests have just been um, pitched and kind of acquired by two metrics. Can your story empower and inspire that audience? That is all. Can your story empower and inspire your audience? Now, obviously, can you pull a crowd as well? Like, I need people to come out of their house to the event. But the most important thing is, can your story empower? Can your story inspire this audience? We get lots of emails, lots of emails.
People pitching to you, or
Can this person do it? Can this person do it? How much is it? Da, 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 da. It can't be by money. It can't be by money because there's big body names that can just buy their way through. So it can't be by money. I can't do it by money. I would love to, but I can't do it by money. Can your story empower and inspire? But also, am I invested in this story? If I'm not invested in the story, it's not happening. No matter the name. If I don't care, then it's not happening. Because when I craft these questions, they're crafted from personal, again, what is the things that you do well? I'm good at asking questions. Why? Because I'm inquisitive to understand and know. So if I can't find a hook, I need a hook. And it can just be one or two hooks. And those hooks can be like, I wonder how Lisa Mafia could be the first lady of So Solid and manage to be the only woman in that group and hold her own.
yeah,
How? What is it? Okay, that's how I'm hooked. Oh, and how is it that she's still relevant now, especially with all her businesses? I'm hooked twice. Okay, cool, let's go. And then we approach them. So yeah, that's how it is. That's how it started, and that's how we kind of try and get the guests.
I think I love the fact that you say there's nothing about the money. Obviously, there's a financial business aspect to all of this, but there is also authentic aspect to this that comes first. And I think people connect with authenticity. And I think now more than ever in this AI social media era, where you don't know what is up from what is down, what is real from what is not, there's something around authenticity that actually has become its own currency. And there are not a lot of spaces that you can go to where you can actually get that, let alone from people who are in the limelight or have a level of fame, shall I say. And you've been able to create that space for both them and those who are then coming to them be able to kind of ask that questions. It's not easy to do. I would say that creating psychological safety is easy to say, not easy to do. But you can create an environment that you put people at ease where they can openly share a lot of those deep, dark thoughts and moments with you. And it is a powerful thing to be able to do. And then obviously get the whole audience involved. I was saying beforehand, I know people who've come to it and they've described what an experience it actually is. So not just a typical interview, but there's a whole lot more involved than just even the interview itself as well, which is amazing.
Absolutely. No, it's I love that the people who mentioned it to you said experience, because we even banned the word event in the team, in our ecosystem. You can't say the word event because it's not an event. It's really not an event. It's an experience that I try and curate very meticulously, like very detailed, the venue, how far is the venue from the station? What are the chairs that are there? And we have to sit on the chairs. Are they comfortable? Is the stage elevated compared to where the seating is? Because the stage has to be, for us, elevated, because the conversation then, it's it's weird, but psychologically it elevates the conversation, and you are a partaker of that, as opposed to it being sloped and you're looking down at the conversation because you're even more
Mm.
further away. How far is the stage to the seating? Because the audience have to feel as much a part of the conversation as possible. So it's got to feel like it's in a living room. What is the lighting like? Is it too dark? If it's too dark, people can fall asleep. If it's too dark and only the stage is lit, then it places, again, sole emphasis on that conversation happening over there, down there, and over here. But when there's a even lighting, then we're all in this room together. We are all therefore in this conversation together. And therefore, when we do live Q&A, yes, your question is as important in the flow of things. You know, what are the toilets like when we have our break? What's the standard of toilets? Because everything else can be great, but in terms of the experience, the richness and the fullness of the experience, the toilet is a place that you go to and you want to feel comfortable as well.
Yeah,
You know,
we'll
um,
take your selfies in there as well.
yeah, exactly. You know, does the place have a screen? We heavily are dependent on audio and visual because we need to touch at least three of the five senses. Are they seeing something? You know, we have a spray that we spray before people come in, and we'll change up that spray. How do people, when people enter into the space, it's even got a smell different. Why? Because they are so important for us, and that is the hashtag of the team. The hashtag is for the people. This again links it all the way back to doing things like commission. You know, we're creating music for the people. This experience we're curating, it's for the people. Anybody that comes on board here, again, when you come in that circle, you have to understand we're here to serve the people from the time they come into the venue and they've got to do their ticketing. My sister is the one that does that ticketing, and because I can she fully knows the persona, the attitude, the approach that role needs, and is so critical. Because if you've never been to the sit down, that is the first. No, that's not even the first. That's like the sixth stage of you experiencing what the sit down is. The first one is when you come onto our Instagram page or you come onto our ticketing page. But when you come to the experience, that
Mm.
person has to embody the fullness of love, of being welcoming, because we want people to have the baggage that they had, drop it at the door, and then you come in. You come into the experience and you experience something for maybe the next 2-3 hours that helps you forget what you left at the door. And you pick up a new bag, and that new bag is feeling a bit more empowered in your journey, a bit more inspired in your journey. So it's a whole experience that is curated. And so by the end of it, there's this massive excel when we're on the stage, and I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to this sit down. We've delivered the experience for the people.
The meticulousness that goes into the planning, I love. That for me, that is always someone who, when you care about every inch of what it is that you are doing and don't, nothing's left to chance, but you want to create and cultivate a great experience. That's how in it you have to be. And that's amazing to kind of hear you say that. And it got me thinking around, we're talking about the power of stories era, and obviously you've interviewed like so many different people, 100 people so far. I'm curious, are there any stories that have stood out to you that have changed your perception, your mindset in any way, shape, or form?
That's a good question. All of them are, obviously, I've got to say, all of them are just beautiful. But I think two. I think two. I think two. The first one would definitely be this year's Mo Gilligan one. That one, I kind of, because I'd interviewed him in 2018 or 2019, um, this was a particular harder one to do because I've already interviewed you before, but at the same time, 7 years had passed. So there's a lot more he has to share. And it was he's the first one that's ever come back twice. So the things he had to say almost had to top what he had said before. Because if you came to the first one, you don't want to necessarily come to the second one and hear the same thing. And so when he spoke about how there are still levels of imposter syndrome that he has. There was a story he told about going to an event that he was invited to by Netflix, and going into an event where there was big body comedians like star power, and him still asking himself, he's like, what am I doing in this room? Like, what am I doing? And for me, the reason it had an impact on me because I was thinking, no matter the amount of people I've interviewed, every person has spoken about this issue. Bianca Saunders, dressed Usher for the Met Gala. That has now actually, in the last week, been entered into Vogue's greatest outfits for a man at Met Gala. But she spoke about her issues of not being able to believe she is who she is. And so it had an impact on me in a sense that I know that is something that I personally will never get over. And I'm not looking to get over it because it's just a reality. Drake says, it's real when you are who you think you are. Amen, that you can get to that place. Amen. But I think as long as you keep your feet on the ground, there's going to be a part of you that doesn't recognize you're in the sky. Your feet are so grounded that you don't even recognize that your head is in the sky. But I think I want to be in that place because it will enable me to keep the most important thing, which is the reason we're doing it is for the people. Because if I go to where my head is in the clouds, I am not going to see the people. The clouds is too crazy up there. So I just realized in that moment when he told that story this year, I was like, you know what? I know people see it as a negative, but I like it. I think it's a positive. And then the second one is JME. And this was in terms of parenting, I asked him, I said, what's your ambitions for your daughter? What do you hope she'll become, etc. And he goes, I have none. I said, really? He goes, yeah, I have none. My only hope is that she becomes who she is.
Yeah.
And as a parent, I was like, man, I didn't think of it like that because I come with, you bring them into the world and you come with your own preconceived ideas, even if you don't say them and even if you don't admit them, you come with your preconceived notion of, I'd love her to be this and I'd love her to be interested in this and I'd love her to go on to do this and be this type of person and have those type of manners and maybe treat friends this type of way, or all these preconceived things that you cannot for the life of you control. You have no control of them. None. And so he said that I have none. Why? Because I just want her to, obviously you put in parameters and all that, but for the most part, I need her to blossom to be who she is. And I think I took that, and in my parenting, every so often, I'm reminded of that conversation when I have my preset conditions for my daughter. No, you need to do this way, or, it could be simple things of how she's playing with a toy. And I want to intervene and be like, oh, no, that's not the way that you do it. And I've had to stop myself and say, well, let her explore the way that she does it, because she might actually find a different way to play with this particular toy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of governed and shaped the way that I parent. Not all the time. I don't get it right all the time, but it pops in my mind, that conversation and how the impact it, has had on me.
Those are very two powerful examples of storytelling, and the first one in particular, I had a question that came up as I listened to you talk, and
to me back to some of what you said earlier on around when you were in the commission, all that kind of stuff, the number of years, you publicly you were everything was great, but behind the scenes you were still struggling with self-confidence and all those different elements as well. But then how do you, if possible, create a balance between not getting your head in the clouds, but also not staying too grounded that you forget who you are. You forget all those gifts and talents that God has given you. You forget that you are good. There's a level of, I'm going to call it ego or ownership, if you want to use that word, that is also necessary to have. So how do you balance both?
You're so right. I love that you said that. That is it. I think it takes constantly having internal audits, whereby again, we're going back to that question. What is it that I do well? What is it that I actually do well? And I think also that comes from your internal filtering system. Because what I was doing, my internal filtering system, is that a compliment would come, and in my internal filtering system, I'll be like, um, it'll come through and you'll be like, filter that, put that in the bin, trash. That was great. That was a good song. Oh, is it? Oh, thank you. Yeah, trash. And I think that internal auditing requires you to have that compliment come, you filter it, and you just file it. File it. And so what I do practically is on my phone, I have something called, we all have our photo albums. I have an album of, how many is it now? Of screenshots. And these screenshots are conversations. These screenshots are DMs. Let's see, what are we up to now? Let's see. And what they do for me, they remind me of what is it that I said I'm good at? How many are in there now? 55. There's like 55 of them. WhatsApp conversations. What is it that I'm good at? And then I link them together, and I'm like, okay, these are the things that people said I'm good at. Do you think you're good at? I'm like, yeah, I own and I accept that. Are you a good interviewer? Go through the filtration system, file it. No, I am. I am. Even for, it's so funny, and this takes, I think it's, when I say again, that internal, it's something you've got to keep doing and reminding yourself. So when I was going to do Mercedes Benson last month, I think a week in that final week before the event, I was nervous. I was like, pardon me, this is obviously someone, I know them, but this is their first time experiencing the sit down in this way. So I want it to be good. I want it to silence any doubts they may have had. I want it to live up to the expectation, but even surpass it. But then I thought, but can I? Even when I was going to do Mo the second time, I'm like, how can I do Mo a second time? What? And I started to panic. I was like, why did you ask him to come twice? You already did it in 2018. What are you doing? You're going to have to do that and better. Can you do that? And so I had to go through my own interviews. I had to go through my folder and think, what is it that people say that I do good? And do you accept that? I was like, I do accept it. I was like, all right then, do you acknowledge it? It's like, yeah, I'm good at it. We've been doing it for 8 years. There's got to be something that's been working in those 8 years. I was like, all right then, cool, let's go. Even before every show, the team know I have to go for a 20 to 30 minute walk. So if we're doing it in Kindred and Hammersmith, I will walk around Hammersmith and I will do my internal checks and talk to myself and be like, brother, let me tell you something. You've done this once before. You've done it before. If you've done this before, you can do it again. You're good. You're good. Don't worry about it. You're good. You've been good at this. We've been 8 years doing good at this. You've got this. Just go in there and just do what you've always done before. And so I really think the way to kind of get that balance is, I think that The grounded thing comes naturally because of church, and the root and the foundation was just poured from the cement was poured from even commission days. This ain't just you. But the grounding, the head grounding is just coming up to match that and understanding, okay, but what is it that you do well? Do that internal audit, write them things down and let them digest into your system rather than when they come from outside, you immediately trash them. Because if you ask anybody those two questions, what is it you're bad at? I need to work on this. I need to work on that. What is that you're good at? Well, I'm good at this. Well, I'm not the best at this. And again, it comes from things like even school. You do the essay, you get the marks back. All you can see is red pen, boom, 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 red pen. And so your mind actually goes to, what's this red pen saying? I did this wrong. I did this wrong. I did this wrong. So even if the structure was good and even if the conclusion was great, that gets put in the trash. What gets zoned into is the red marking. And I think it's just us taking a whole new rewiring of what is it I'm good at? Can I digest, accept that and put that through my filtration system and not put it to trash, but to file it. And I can pull on that file at any time. Physically, practically, I do it on my phone, but mentally, I can pull on that file and be like, you know what? When I'm about to do a show, I'm going to pull from that file. I'm good at what I do. Let's run with it. And it doesn't always work, but that's why you have to work on it so that you get it when you need it.
You have to be intentional.
Yes.
I always say that you never, ever underestimate the power of your filtration system. And that's why it's very important around what it is that you're taking into that to help you to filter the different things that's happening around you. Because even like the way our bodies are formed, like it takes more, naturally speaking, when we get negative information, our brains actually take more time and more effort to process them, which is part of the reason why that bias will stay will stay with us. But if you have a different filtrations, we're like, actually, you know what? All right, that's happened. Okay, how can I separate it to? How can I take the good, own it, live it, and recognize the bad, learn from it, but not over-index on it, which is what we tend to do, kind of flow through.
And it's funny. Just last week, actually, I was doubting the sit down so much, and yeah, because I'm not working at the moment, so it's the only thing I'm doing. And so I was not in a good space. But Mo, big up to Mo, he sent me a voice note the day after the event. And I got it on my phone. And so I just play it every so often.
It just reminds you.
And it just reminds me of the words that he said. And thankfully, there was one event that we recorded and he did the closing words and just speaking on the event. And I was really surprised. I was really, really shocked that he said that. All the stuff that he said about the sit down, but it was so encouraging. So now, for me personally, I'm able to file that every so often because on our YouTube, I can go into my YouTube and I file it, what the words that were spoken about the sit down and about what we do. So yeah, sometimes it's like the physical, practical aspect of it is finding those things that you can file, man. Find those things that you can file, voice notes, messages.
Yep.
You know, and store them. Literally store them in your iCloud, but all in your heart. You know, try and store them.
I do that with when I work with my clients. Don't matter what level they have been, every single person I want to say that you need to keep a folder of all the positive, whether it's a statement, emails, whatever it is. There's gonna come a day where you're gonna need it. So make sure you have it, because even to your point, I remember I asked the question a lot of times, and I probably asked it 2 weeks ago. I asked someone like, what is something that you're good at that people come to you for? And she struggled to say what she was good at. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe I can't. But I was like, that's mad that you can't actually come up with one thing. But yet there are loads of things that are examples in that group that people can actually share. I'm like, and she's like, yeah, it's so weird. But I was like, what is you bad at? Well, she can read. And I was like, you need to go back. And she said herself, like, I definitely need to go back myself and double down on that, because we don't focus so much on the positive, even though it's what that makes so much of a difference and will help us out in the good times to just celebrate, but in the bad time as well, just to rises up from what feels like the ashes and be like, nope, keep going, stay focused as well. And we're coming up to the end of this, and I've been loving the story in this conversation. And I have two questions actually to end. One, I'm curious, do you describe yourself now as a creative instead of an artist? And do you recognize that's who you are, or do you still see yourself as an artist?
No, I don't even call myself an artist. It's so funny you say that because I had to change my Instagram handles, and that was a deep moment. It had always been icy music, icy music, icy music, icy music for years. And when did I change it? I think I changed it maybe 2 years ago. I think it was in the beginning of the year, New Year's resolutions and newness. And so I thought, you know what? What is it that I do well now? Again, looking at the fluidity of purpose. What is it that I do well now? What is that when people come on that page I want them to associate with? And I was like, I see the host. I host events. I host conversations. This is what I do. So yeah, that's what I kind of affiliate with now as a creative, but more so as a what could you say? A curator. I think I'm more of a curator of
Mm,
conversation.
okay. And how would you define the term leadership?
Oh, jeez, man. However, I don't know. I honestly don't know what a leader is because I think because I've interviewed so many people, it's almost like this abstract idea of what a leader is. Because I've spoken to leaders and they don't know what they're doing.
Hmm.
I've spoken to leaders and they say that they don't know what they're doing. So I think a leader is just maybe somebody who's bold enough to step out on an idea and they're just committed to follow through with that idea to the end. They've stepped out on that idea and they're committed to follow through with that idea to the end. And then they gather people along with that idea and manage them to get this idea all the way through, while battling their own demons. So they're teachers and they're students at the same time, So I don't feel there's uh, an Oxford, Cambridge 100% definition. I just really feel it's people that have an idea, they pursue it to the end, and then they gather people around that idea. Um, yeah, that's what I think.
I always say that the term leadership for me, the more it stays away from the Oxford Cambridge definitions and the more it's just steeped in realness, it's super important. And when I listen to you share your journey and your story, even from what you're doing with commission, for example, you were leading because you created an environment that so many people were able to get stuff from to then be able to then pour into their lives. When I look at what you do in facilitation and training, you're leading in those environments with those programs that you're creating, which is making an impact in so many lives. When I look at what you're doing with the sit down, you are also leading because actually you're helping create an environment and space where your guests can come and share and your audience can come and share and participate for both elements of learning as well obviously in your home as well. So there's so many elements to who you are that what you just described is what you are doing. And I
That's
love when the
funny.
synergies kind of come together as well.
That's dope. I like that. No, that's good. That's true.
No, I talk about it. Has been, I knew this conversation was going to be so dope and I was going to enjoy it. And it has been exactly that and more. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much. We were all able to get this done. And just appreciate what it is you're doing out there as well. For me, it's beautiful and something that I definitely want more and more people just to get involved in and support and amplify as much as we can as well.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Thank you for your time.
This is Everyday Leadership. We will see you all next week.